Before I begin, I think let me thank Chennai. This is my third time here in Chennai, and I really want to thank all you guys because somewhere I believe, and I was telling all you people, the organizers especially, you guys are so humble. I wish half of the Delhi's population was half as good as you guys. But, okay. Let me begin by how I started, why I'm standing before all of you here. I was just like any other college graduate. Did my microbiology. I really don't know why, but I did. After that, I went on to drop a year, do my MBA because I wanted to get into the pharmaceutical sector because Kiran Majumdar-Shaw was like my icon for the life and all that. Now I realize how crazy I was. But then she was my icon, at that time when I was doing graduation, and then gradually I realized, okay, maybe not microbiology, maybe pharmaceutical sector, not the research bit of it, but maybe more of the practical side of the marketing side of pharmaceuticals was something that appealed to me that time, not now. So that time it was more like, okay, so I drop a year and then I subsequently go on to do my MBA and realize again that, okay, Lehman Brothers collapsed at the time of placements. Wow, the whole world is under a recession and you want to get placed, but there's nobody who wants to pick you up. Nobody from the batch wants to get picked up. And okay, so I realized, okay, let's just chuck pharmaceuticals and let's just get into a sector which is booming. Because like any other youngster, I was somebody who wanted to make a real mark for myself, for my parents mostly because they're always scared of my insanity levels. Try and do something that made sense for me that time. I've always lived in the present. Even right now, I'm living in the present. I've never really cared about the past or the future. I think just think about the present and everything's going to be sorted. So okay, I end up in a mutual funds industry, end up doing, so that's pretty much my journey as a person. As a young person, if I can call myself, I can see youngest CEOs here, and I really don't know if I can call myself young anymore. But then I went on to do I think a 60 or 70 day stint at a corporate house where I was supposed to sell mutual funds and insurance to people. And it so happened that during one of those client visits or whatever, I met the security guard. He was actually not my client at that time, when I was trying to sell insurance, but he just happened to see my ID card that I'd forgotten to take off, after at the end of the day. And he asks me, Madam ji, aap bima karate ho? Are you the one who does insurance for people? I'm like, yeah, I have murga for the day and my sales targets are going to be awesome. Yes. And so there I am, and I tried to sell him a mutual funds insurance, insurance policy, and I think it was a Kotak Mahindra training that we'd got that morning, so I was like, okay, chipkaufai that thing to him, and I ended up successfully. But trust me, that night I could not sleep. 3 days later, I gave in my papers and I quit my job. I didn't tell my parents because I know they'll be psyched up. On a Thursday morning, I think a July or a June, my father's trying to wake me up. Don't you have to go to the office today? And I'm like, no, I've quit my job. So, and then there's this huge family meeting that comes up. All the uncles of my place and from far off places, they're all there and trying to tell me, you know what, my kid is an ICICI officer. You know what, you should be like that. You know what, my kid is this IIT engineer and you should be like that. I'm like, really? Screw yourselves. Let me be who I am. Let me be who I am. And then I think my dad was really frustrated. My dad was like, I've given you the best of convent education. Convent education is not very great. So I've given you the best of convent education and I've given you the best of graduation and degrees and all of that. I was like, yeah, and I'm really thankful because without that, maybe I would not have the mind to think the way I can think right now. And so he said, I give you 10 days, go figure out something because you've already quit your job without having anything in your hand. And you call yourself passionate, try and prove whatever that means to you or to me or to us. So I was like, okay, give me 10 days. And I started applying to a lot of corporate communications people because if not for finance, the next thing I could do was I think I could write. And I could think maybe. So I started applying to a lot of corporate communication guys, and somewhere I got selected as a communications manager. So bingo, it was very easy. So I'm enjoying my job, doing photo shoots, making videos, making corporate films for 14 months. 14 months is a long time. So for 14th month, I'm sent to this corporate film shoot, and I happened to come across this woman. I'll not take names, but to keep it very simple, after the end of the shoot that I was supposed to be doing, I have just a little digi camera in my hand that time. That was all I could afford. Not that I can afford anything else right now. But then I went up to her, and she had a little baby, 11-month-old kid, sitting. She was on a manji, like on a cot, and pardon my Punjabi slang if you get offended. So she was sitting on a manji, and her little kid was little daughter was sitting next to one of the legs of the cot, and I was like, how do I break the ice and start talking to her? And I pick up the apple that I have in my bag, and I offer it to the little kid, the littlemost kid, and her mom tells me, this woman tells me, she would not know that it's an apple or it's something to be eaten, because they've never, they've never seen something like that which is to be eaten. Because at that time, I remember in a mother dairy in Delhi, an apple was 18 rupees, that nice red apples that you get. So that was the first reality check for my life. So anyway, she gets a knife and she cuts the apple into 6 pieces and gives one to each of her daughters, because she had 6 daughters, and she was pregnant with the 7th kid. And I asked her, what are you going to do with your 7th kid if this is the scene, if this is the scenario? And her husband was a chaat pani puri maker, one of those street vendors. And she tells me, if it's a boy, I'm going to bring him up, educate him and everything. But if it's a girl this time, I'm going to strangle her the minute she's born. And I'm standing there as a 23-year-old, speechless. Pretty much every time I think of this incident, it still renders me speechless. And so I asked her, what are you going to do with your, even the boy that you're going to have, how are you going to raise him up? And the next solution that she gives me is, I'm already sending my 8-year-old girl, Julie, to a brothel so that I can feed the rest of my 5 daughters, and the 7th one is going to come. And that time, sometimes when I look back and I think I might have been one of those people who would have said, let's go back. Very pitiful life and sad life, and let me just go back and enjoy my life as a Punjabi girl in Delhi. That moment froze me in shoes. I can still feel myself getting goosebumps right now. And I think within 27 minutes, I decided I'm going to change life, if not for everybody, at least for Julie that time. And so we started with the Creative Arts Center 3 weeks from that time, because we got a couple of people on board as in not really a management board, but we got a couple of people on the team, and one of the women who started working with me, still is working very strong with me right now in Delhi, Sadhana. She's so much more to Protsahan than I am. And we started off with Protsahan with just some feasibility studies. If nothing else, MBA teaches you how to do a feasibility study. So that's something that I learned in my MBA. And I started getting all the data together and just charted out some basic figures and facts, and decided this place needs a little creative arts center. A lot of speakers have been speaking about that, and I'm so thankful that all of them have touched the same chord. At the end of the day, it all boils down to happiness. You can talk about big Excel sheets, and you can talk about big formulas and big management business continuity principles, and you can talk about all this big jazz that the corporates talk about these days, because I'm also a consultant, so I look at this and I smirk. It's funny for me at a lot of levels. But then for that one moment, for that one time, all that Julie really needed was to get herself out of the brothel and give her a happy life. Now, a lot of times, so that was a story in very simple terms, if I say, that pretty much changed me who I am, not as a person really, because even right now, I watch porn and I'm happy. I've not changed the person who I am. I still have Jack Daniels and feel happy. It's not that just because I'm a social entrepreneur, I'm like, oh my God, you got to be a Mother Teresa. No, I'm not. But let's change the world with who we are as people. So I will not forget this woman for what she. As Samir was saying, being an entrepreneur and being a social entrepreneur, somebody who does not make profits, how easy or how tough it is to lead a life like that. For a lot of people, you are somebody who, who's going to be a very difficult person, somebody who's a lot of venture capitalists are going to come to you and this and that. Trust me, it doesn't happen like that. Life is not all hunky-dory for a lot of times. And a lot of times people think that, what you need to start a non-profit or to start anything, that you need a lot of venture capital. That's my reaction to that. You don't need venture capital, you don't need seed money. Of course you need money as and when you start growing, but just to fund that idea. If you give me an excuse saying that, I could not fund my idea because I didn't have a venture capital on board. That's what I'll say to you. So did I have pockets full of money? No, I didn't. I was a college grad, first assignment in the corporate sector, 14th month into my job. What I had was I was loving what I started doing. I started to change lives for kids like Julie. Initially we rescued girls from traffic points. Initially we rescued boys from drug abused areas. Little boys who start on thinner and fluid. and then how crazy they get on the street. There was a time when I got a big blade cut, across my chest with one of the guys, one of those little boys that we were trying to work with. And for 3 months, I remember I had to wear a high neck kurta because I couldn't show that to my dad. Anything that you need to remember as people who would want to start up something is definitely some of this. You're going to be alone when you start up. Always remember that. Even in life, as an entrepreneur or as somebody who's regular, you're always going to be alone. You might have a family, a very beautiful wife, a very jazzy dude husband. At the end of the day, you will all be alone. Who are going to figure stuff out for yourselves. Be yourself in front of people who scare you. For us, for people like social entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, most people feel that people who scare us are these venture capitalists. Because when you go up to ask for money, they will say no. Does that scare me? It does not. I still remember a time when we were in barista, or I've visited all the baristas in Delhi for that matter, for all the meetings when we didn't have an office really. And one of these really important angel investors in the market, and I go up to him to show my project and how I've kind of worked upon the sustainability modules and this and that for the sectors that we were working for. And the first thing he tells me is, how much of an ROI can you give me on a sexually abused child that you're working on? How much of a return on investment can you give me on a drug abused child that you're working on? And I paid my coffee bill and I politely left. I've never changed who I was as a person, or I'm never going to change who I am as a person just because somebody does not. He has some different principles. Doesn't work. As an entrepreneur, that's the first thing that you're going to have. So take care of that. A lot of people are going to come and say, oh my God, this has never been done before. You're a young kid who, I'm referred to as a kid when I go and rescue kids from the trafficking points and this and that. A lot of people say, you're yourself a kid. I'm like, no, my parents want to get me married at some time, soon. But then a lot of times you will be facing this entire thing that, pehle kabhi nahi hua hai. Why do you want to, how are you going to do it? But figure things out for yourself and you would just know how to do it. The questions, the answers are right here in your mind. So how did we do stuff? Everybody's on Facebook, but I think rather than reaching out to people on Facebook by saying that I'm in the loo and I'm in the washroom doing crap, we used Facebook to reach out to people across the globe. And we reached out to 28,000 people in a span of 2.5 years. And we've reached out to about 350 odd kids that we've rescued from different points in Delhi currently. And we're starting up our chapters in Mumbai and Pune and Chennai very soon. And did the world start believing? I don't know. Maybe it did. We got nominations for weird things. And then I think 8 months after starting Protsahan, we get a call from the World Bank. Come speak to us about your initiative at Washington, D.C. I'm like, okay. You pay for my tickets and food and I'm good. That's the first assignment that we we started. So it was not that, we just rescued the kid and we're like, okay, let's teach the kid art and craft and creativity and get over with it. What about, what's the end result? Are you bridging the end mile, the last mile? So we started working with a mother. Because somewhere we believed that if that woman would have got a livelihood, maybe she would have never sent Julie to a brothel in the first place. This was the first outcome of this is a diya that you light during Diwali times. This is the first diya that we created at Protsahan. We sold about 18,000 rupees worth of diyas to all the corporates to raise funds for our own projects. We never went up to any VC to ask for money. A lot of people ask me, oh my God, you run a non-profit, you run an NGO, you're supposed to be working with sex abused and drug abused kids. You're supposed to be boring. I'm like, okay, we'll figure that out. This was the next thing we did in terms of creating bags, and we called, it's simple. At the end of the day, you don't really need a lot of, a lot of people say innovation starts when you design a software product. Innovation starts when you do some architectural, amazing stuff. I think innovation starts right at the basic thing. For kids who couldn't speak or hear, we did coffee art. So when we were doing coffee art, so you just keep on adding the coffee powder, the aroma starts increasing, the colors of brown start increasing on the painting. And for a kid who can't understand much of what's happening and how is it happening, she can smell the aroma increasing. And I still remember that day my class smelled like a little barista. This is a robotics workshop that we had for drug abused kids. This is those livelihood skills, skill development initiatives that we keep having. We don't leave the kid at that point that, okay, we've rescued you, full stop. We take it to the next thing. This is when we painted the entire slum. The kids, the survivors and the victims of child sex abuse were the ones who actually talked about talked against child sex abuse through Madhubani and Varli paintings across the entire slum. This is Madhubani. It's an ancient art form from Bihar. This is how we started working with the mothers. Again, painting classes, photography, those 5 elements that we've used extensively at Protsahan are stories, design, art, photography, and cinema. Because somewhere we believe these 5 elements comprise creativity. I am standing here in front of you not to talk about an organization or me or whatever. I'm here to talk about a concept, a little concept, an idea, that it's just creativity that can make a kid happy, that can bring up people like Shravan and Sanjay, start thinking at such levels. But for kids who don't have even half as much as stuff that you and I have, what's the least that we can give them? A fruity and a chocolate and be happy after that? No. Let's start making them to think. This was the first time they did awesome stuff on an MS Paint that I can dare you guys that you can't even do. The best graphic designers can't do on Corel. This was the stuff that, again, photography, street photography. Again, those livelihood workshops that we kept doing in the slums. A lot of happy things that we started doing for all the kids that we were trying to work with. One of the most epicest, if I can say, one of those urinated walls in Mumbai. This is what we ended up doing with that wall. And at the end of the day, we had about 100 kids that we have, about 50 to 100 kids on weekends that we try and teach a lot of creative stuff right in front of this thing. What were my learnings as a young person who was trying to figure out stuff for herself? You don't die if you work for 21 hours a day. I haven't. There was no barista in Delhi that I didn't have my meeting because I never even had an office space. Now we do have a little structure in a slum that we try and work with. Not all entrepreneurs drop out of college. You can have educated people like me turning into entrepreneurs. You try convincing about your idea to the whole world, it'll be easy. You try convincing about such ideas to your folks, you get nightmares. Always remember as an entrepreneur that you have sustainability as a strategy.